All right.
And we are recording and we are live. Welcome to another episode of Gavin Richard Presents. I'm joined today by the lovely Dinatra Nicole Lewis, a.k.a. Nicole's View. I pronounced your first name right, I hope.
It's Denotra, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I want to get your
all
names
the time.
correct. I want to get names correct so that way, I wouldn't want nobody to mess up my name. Like yesterday, I was out at dinner. The maitre d', even though it's not a classy restaurant, he asked what my name was, and I said Richard. It's spelled like Richard, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna call it Richard." I was like, "No, my name is Richard. That's my name." He's like, "I'm sorry. I'll just write it Rishard."
Right.
I just walked off and gave up at that point. So
it happens. Yeah, I'm used to it. It's okay.
And I'm used to it here in the South. And you just moved. Speaking of South, you are from Austin?
I am. Well, I was born in Lubbock, Texas, but I call Austin home because we moved here when I was like 11 or 12, and we've been here ever since. I did move to New Jersey for a few years, and we trekked back south, so we're back in Austin.
Okay, yeah, I saw that because you would be recording, I know, from New Jersey, and I know when you were in New Jersey, your apartment had caught on fire, if I'm not mistaken.
It did. We were just lucky that we were all out safely. I wasn't there when it happened, but my spouse and my son was. So, yeah, luckily they got out okay. So,
was it was a whole apartment fire, or was it the whole?
Yeah, the section we were in, like building 3,
okay.
It definitely, or 7, excuse me. It started from the first floor and it just traveled up, and we were on the 3rd floor. So it's 3 levels, and yeah, that's where it all started. It was electrical. So
right.
Yeah, we had enough in New Jersey. So we're like, yeah, got to move back home.
Well, yeah, well, now you move into the big heat in Texas.
Yep. I'm used to it, but I got to get back used to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just grateful you and your family weren't harmed by it and that you were okay. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen your face and I've seen your Facebook profile. We've been Facebook friends for a little minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're big into Michael Jackson and Christmas, so we have something in common.
Yep.
Right.
And since I was a little kid, so like most of us.
Right. Yeah. We'll talk about Michael in a minute too, because I've talked to Drew. I did an interview with Drew that you heard, Drew Hepkins from the Drew News story, and we talked about Michael Cosby and other things that have been going on in the world. And I thank you for joining me again and blessing me with your with the interview and talking with me. Yeah. So, but obviously the big news things that have been going on. We yesterday or the day before yesterday, which was Thursday, we had a chance to talk with Tom Mesereau, who was Bill Cosby's attorney, and you sat through the interview, right?
Right. Correct.
And you called in, and you called in exactly right after I had called in.
Right.
Right. And you were at the trial. So Nicole, tell me and tell the viewers about your experiences at the trial.
Well, it was interesting because it just kind of happened. I wasn't even really expecting to go to this trial. But once we had the fire and I had turned in my notice to quit my job that I was with, and we were just planning on moving back home. So I had this downtime, and I'm like, all right, I've been reporting on this on my YouTube channel, and I wanted to get the real deal in person, not through the lens of mainstream media. So I decided to go. I didn't go every day, but the days that I did go, you could see that this was totally, it was a railroad job from top to bottom. Mr. Cosby had no chance in hell in that area with that DA, with the judge. It was basically the cards were stacked against him. He didn't have a chance. Even just in the area, there was an agenda to find him guilty. you'd go to a coffee shop right across the street and you would see them selling cups with saying we support sexual assault victims, and you're like, this is literally right across the street. How is this okay? You know, you'd have these folks out here who are pro sexual assault victims, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it becomes an issue when you have the judge's wife who apparently is connected with some of these groups. It becomes a conflict of interest.
Right.
And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So just seeing those things just let me know that the writing was on the wall. I tried to stay, what's the word? I wanted to stay.
You wanted to stay for the duration of the trial, or you were trying to?
I guess I was just trying to still believe in this thing called justice. And I just didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. You know, I didn't see it at all.
No.
And this is one reason why a lot of Black people feel this system is not for us.
Right.
That's just how I felt. But I was trying to have trust in it, I guess.
Well, a lot of people now, especially since the verdict has come out, have spoken out against it. Joey Jackson, the CNN analyst for CNN. Well, excuse me, he's the legal analyst for CNN. He called it travesty of injustice, and that the case should never happen. Mr. Mesereau, when we spoke on the phone with him, he said it was one of the most biased cases. He had never seen anything like it in his 30 plus years of practicing law. And he's practiced, as I've known him, he has practiced even in the South, in Mississippi and Alabama, on death row cases involving, obviously, I'm sure poor black men who can't afford to even hire his services. But he said he saw nothing. He said this was the most biased he ever saw.
Yeah.
And you were there for that's okay. Yeah, a little burp. Yeah. Watch the sodas.
Yeah, right. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, you're good. So, but yeah, it was one of the most biased things he had ever seen. Even I think it was worse than the Michael Jackson trial. I think even from his own estimates. But how many days did you end up going to the trial, and were you by yourself?
I did go by myself. Well, on the first day we went, I went with my friend. I took her, and she couldn't believe it. Like, she was on the fence. I don't know if you saw the video I did with her.
I did.
Hey, Adrian, if you see this, I was with her, and even she was like, okay, this is not okay. The fix is in. She saw, I believe, Andrea Constant is the first day we went, was testifying. And even she was like, come on, like, really? Like, who keeps going to a person, who keeps visiting a person who has sexually assaulted you? This woman at the time was 30 years old. It just didn't make sense. And then they had folks who try to come in there, specialists, counselors, folks who deal with sexual assault victims.
Oh, wait, Nicole, are you saying that she went back to his house after the assault occurred on multiple times?
Absolutely, she did.
She testified to that.
She testified, or there were even records shown how she would call him. She called him, during Valentine's Day? I mean, these are things that the people, the general public, doesn't know or don't want to know. But, even at one point, Cosby invited her and her parents to see him at a comedy show.
Right, I heard about that. Yeah.
This does not sound like an assault victim to me. I'm sorry. This sounds like a mistress, And when Cosby was trying to basically get rid of her, this is what happened. She's like, wait a minute, I pretty much got nothing out of this. He did try to help her with her career, getting into sports broadcasting, journalism. He introduced her to folks, but nothing came of it. So I guess in her eyes, I got nothing out of this. I messed around with this older man and I have nothing to show for it. That's what I took away from it. Someone who was desperate. And during the trial, they reveal how she ran pyramid schemes while working at Temple University, all this stuff folks don't know, okay? And you're just sitting there and you're telling folks this was a setup.
Wow.
Told a woman who worked at Temple University, who she worked with, that she wanted to set someone up, a famous person up.
Right, I heard about that. That was what's her name? I can't even think.
I believe Marguerite Jackson.
Marguerite Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, stellar, had a stellar career at Temple University. What does she have to lie for, you know?
Right, and she even admitted at first, Andrea, it seemed, either forgot or lied about knowing Marguerite Jackson the first time, and the judge did not allow Marguerite Jackson, I believe, to testify in the first trial. But
exactly.
What was interesting is that he allowed, and we call them the prior bad act witnesses, he allowed 5 of them to testify, the 404 in our code of evidence. You know, he allowed them to testify, but when Bill Cosby wanted to call another witness, they had subpoenaed, if I'm not mistaken, they weren't able to find her. The judge did not allow a continuance for the defense to find that witness.
Correct.
He didn't also allow he didn't grant a mistrial when one of the accusers called him a serial rapist. I believe it's Heidi. I can't think of her name. There's so many. I can't.
Oh, I know. You tend to forget. There's so much, and that was done on purpose.
Right. He didn't grant a mistrial for that when she called him a serial rapist in front of the jury. Also, the woman, that black woman that they bring on who's always crying, Shalana.
Oh gosh.
Answer.
Who has a rap sheet longer than, the Yellow Brick Road.
Longer than Tupac.
Yeah. It's just amazing. It's amazing that this is what went down, the shenanigans that went down. And of course, the media, they were on code. They had, they wanted this conviction. So they were going to report anything that looked very bad in Mr. Cosby's favor. I witnessed that for myself. So, yeah, the fix was in.
Well, what was prejudicial about her case, what she said too, was that she said something along the lines of, "You remember me, Mr. Cosby." The defense moves for a mistrial, which the judge should have granted because it influences the jury when they hear this testimony and they hear these statements that are just made. And he's not even giving his reasons why he's refusing to grant a mistrial, or not even giving reasons why he allowed 5 other accusers, one of whom is a known liar in Janice Dickerson. Her testimony should have never even been admitted in the record. Mr. Mesereau even brought up the fact that the prosecutor personalized, the case in his final closing arguments. He said how he investigated it personally. Well, prosecutors can't do that because, that's prejudicial. That influences the jury. You're making it a personal issue. And the judge didn't grant the mistrial on that one. But what was also interesting, what you talked about, the coffee house that had the cups that say we support sexual assault survivors. You had this crowd outside and press junkets and inside the courtroom. Clearly that was influencing the jury. And one juror number 11, had stated along the lines, "Let's convict him," allegedly. "Let's go ahead and convict him. He's guilty." And this was brought to the attention of the defense. Right. And the judge did not dismiss that juror, which he could have, even if the juror denied it, just out of fairness. The judge has a right to strike a juror for cause, just like the defense and prosecution does. You have preemptory challenges. And obviously something like that very prejudicial, because all you need is a unanimous jury, a unanimous verdict in, except Louisiana and I believe Oregon. We're the only 2 states that have non-unanimous juries, which we're trying to change because the reason why that was created was to keep blacks off the juries here in Louisiana. But but if you have one juror saying that, and that juror, let's say he did get dismissed, well, you bring in a fair and impartial juror, and I'm not saying that this would have happened or not, but he might have been the holdout to make another mistrial.
Correct.
Or another hung jury. The first trial ended in a hung jury, And I think a mistake that was made was when I thought Andrew Wyatt, when he gave the speech afterwards about Mr. Cosby's power, I was like, well, it's not over with just yet.
Right, right.
Don't get so bold in front of the white supremacists.
Right.
Right.
It's it's just they're trying to defend him, as much as they can, and it's so hard. It's so hard. I mean, I feel like a lot of these folks that were even out there protesting or had signs, I feel they were even hired to be out there.
Like the black girl who was actually on the Cosby Show that jumped out with a breast decision.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that's just the buffoonery that went down. Now, I wasn't there that day, but this is what we're talking about. It was basically a freak show.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cosby did not get a fair trial at all.
No, he didn't, and that's all of those issues that we're bringing up. Those are Sixth Amendment issues. You have a right under the Constitution through the Sixth Amendment to a fair and impartial trial by jury. You have a right to confront your accuser. You also have a right to bring on compulsory witnesses that would be beneficial to you, those that would testify on your behalf. And the judge also has to be fair and impartial. And, with his wife having ties to the groups that were trying to get Mr. Cosby, that were outside the courtroom, she received money. The media presence unduly influencing it. It's definitely a appealable case. And that's only a brief part of what we touched on. There was other issues. I believe Shade Brown Media reported that 3 of the jurors, I don't know how true it is, but they got book deals. And it was being influenced. Right. And that's jury tampering if that was going on during the trial.
Correct. So if we see this, let's say next year or whenever, that's going to pretty much prove our point. It's total corruption. It feels disgusting. It feels sleazy. It feels like this was a setup,
Well, they definitely learned, I believe, from both the Michael Jackson trial and even before that, the O.J. Simpson case, because that was not supposed to happen, where this black man got this fair trial. And believe it or not, even O.J. did not get a complete fair trial because there was evidence that he had, like Nicole Brown Simpson's phone records that were hidden from the jury.
Exactly.
Johnny Cochran and them, I've heard this, and I don't know how true. Maybe but some men I know, his name is Dr. Henry Johnson. His brother is Thomas Johnson. They wrote a book, and they Double Cross for Blood. Dr. Johnson wrote that. I've spoken to him before, where he says that basically the attorneys on both sides, they made a deal to go ahead with this trial so that they can make money off of it. But Johnny Cochran, according to what he says, this is his words, and he's been on interviews before, he took a deal with them saying, well, my guy walks and you got to give me Geronimo Pratt. Because if you read Johnny Cochran's autobiography or even listen to interviews, his most famous case that he's so proud of was the Geronimo Pratt case, because he got him off. And who was Geronimo Pratt's godson? Tupac Shakur.
There you go.
And Johnny Cochran represented Tupac. He also represented Michael when Michael had the first molestation allegation. Right. So I think all of that is, and there's been speculation. A lot of people think Johnny got killed because he was trying to push for reparations and because they were upset about this verdict. There's so many speculations on that. I don't necessarily know, but it surprised me. I believe certain things, and they did learn definitely from Michael Jackson. I think what saved Michael too is he didn't have Twitter and Instagram at that time, because otherwise I think he would have been convicted.
Yeah. And also there was no movements, no pro pedophilia type movements going on, taking over the country. So, and also Michael still had a dedicated fan base around the world. So to see fans out there every single day, no matter how vicious the media was towards him, they couldn't deny that he was still beloved and, just practically worshipped around the world. So all of that, in my opinion, worked in his favor. But unfortunately with Cosby, it's different. Cosby is from a totally different era. And we're in the age of, like you said, social media. These movements are going on. You have a media that is even more just vicious. They're chasing the story. They're going to stick to a story. Gone are the days when there was, honest, trustworthy media. Those days are gone.
Impartiality is out of the window.
Exactly. It's all about ratings and who can we get next.
Right. Even with Donald, and I don't like Donald Trump, but what he said about fake news, he was 100% correct.
About the only thing I agree with him with.
Well, a broken clock can get the time right once.
Once or twice.
Once or twice. So, he got it right. But, and actually speaking of which, there's a YouTube video of him speaking about Michael Jackson. And believe it or not, he actually spoke highly of him.
Right.
Michael, I know he knew Michael and Mike Tyson and so forth, but that's it. Right. But since we're talking about Michael, do you think, again, though, after the 1993 case that when he got off, he kind of set himself up, or it wasn't wise for him to be getting on television saying, well, it's okay if I share my bed with a child?
Yeah, it's a mixture. I do wish after that first just insane, crazy case, I do wish he would have been smarter about the folks he had around him. Now he did, I will say this, smarten up as far as having folks around him to be eyes and ears for him. So in a lot of ways that helped him as well. He had some very close associates that were around him during the time with Gavin Arvizo. And he was telling him, you keep an eye, you're going to sleep in the room with me too. He would do stuff like that.
Name.
Right.
Excuse my language. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said he had to have my effing name.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah. Oh, Gavin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gavin Arvizo. Yeah. So, we knew those folks were lying. Okay. Because the story didn't add up. Yeah. It was just a joke. These folks are on TV praising him one minute, and now the next he's holding them hostage and he's just molesting Gavin Arvizo. And it didn't make sense from jump.
And Martin Bashir was a piece of shit.
Oh, of course.
He definitely, I felt that he was trying to take advantage of Michael, and there were things that were edited out because Michael, what he was smart enough to do was he had his cameras rolling also while he was doing the interview. Like when Martin would say Neverland was dangerous, it was this dangerous place. Well, Michael had his cameras and his audio rolling, and Bashir was praising it. So exactly. he was lying to him. He was stabbing him in the back. And I believe he was the trick that they sent to try and set Michael up. There was a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, too, I've heard, that Tom Sneddon was doing, basically almost like this prosecutor with Bill Cosby, Kevin Steele did.
Absolutely.
They changed laws to try and get Michael Jackson, and they're changing laws now to get
Bill Cosby.
Well, not only to get Bill Cosby, to get black men, because we are the proxies. Whenever, even with OJ, they started changing domestic violence laws, and Congress even passed a nationwide law that they threw billions of dollars into, and now you look at different states, if you get a domestic violence charge on you, you're not going to be able to own a gun for a while. You have to stay within a certain amount of feet. They can file, restraining orders, injunctions against you, and that can ruin your employment. And sometimes, and I've seen it in court where women will file frivolous claims, because they say their former boyfriend cursed at them.
Wow.
Or they say they threatened them. Or I had a situation once where I represented a guy that was accused of scratching this woman's car up and threatening her. and she gave a date and time. Well, the only problem was that I had the GPS records from when he was at work, and he was in Texas at the time all of this happened. So he, but he wanted to just get it out of the way. He didn't want to be bothered with it, and they just mutually agreed to stay away. And I said, okay, fine. But yeah, getting back to it, Michael, had I believe, a larger fan base than Bill, and I feel a lot of black people are still bitter about when Bill Cosby gave the pound cake speech. But I think that has a lot to do with it. And you didn't see too many celebrities speak out for him, like, did you?
No, and I think those who even wanted to, I think he's told them, like, maybe reach out and said, don't even say anything because I don't know what this is. Like Steve Harvey, for example, wanted to speak out in support of Bill Cosby, but Bill told him, I don't even want this touching you. So there's a lot of that. And of course, you're not going to see them come out because when stuff like this happens, you're basically by yourself. Even with Michael Jackson, you hardly didn't see anyone besides his family. And of course, the people who testified in his defense, like Macaulay Culkin, Chris Tucker, like that, but they had to be there, because they wanted to show.
Well, Eddie Griffin was there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Eddie Griffin was there.
Eddie Griffin. Eddie Griffin actually was booked the limo for the arraignment, and he went there with Catherine and Jermaine. I think Janet was there too.
The family definitely.
Yeah,
and I forgot about Eddie. That's
Gregory.
He
would when Joe couldn't show up. I think Dick Gregory was there, or he may have been there with Joe too. I think they both went. Yeah. So, but I mean, you didn't see.
Not on a mass level, is what I'm saying.
Brooke, I didn't see Brooke Shields or Elizabeth Taylor and all those people. Liza Minnelli, and all of the people. Emmanuel Lewis spoke highly of him. Corey Feldman said nothing happened. Macaulay Culkin said nothing happened. Now you got this kid Wade Robinson, who's saying Michael did this to him, but. When he testified at the trial, he was the strongest witness that they had. He said he denied everything. And if you go on, I believe it's TJ, that's Tito's son, his Twitter account, he actually has emails of Wade Robinson trying to stay with, go to the funeral for Michael, the memorial.
Wade Robinson is just a sad case of just being angry, bitter, because no one in the industry was really working with him like that anymore. He went bankrupt. So that was his last ditch effort to get money. And that was to play on he was abused by Michael because, he has a child now, and it was just a Hail Mary. And that's what he's doing now. He's trying to get money.
Right. BS.
Yeah. That's all it is.
Right.
Yeah. And it's sick. How could you do that to a so-called friend who is no longer here? So these are the folks that were around Michael. These are the backstabbers that he had around him.
Do you think a lot of this, I want to ask you this, do you think a lot of what's going on like with Michael Jackson and Prince, do you think that it had to do with his catalog?
Oh, definitely. Definitely in Michael's case. Prince, possibly. I won't say 100% sure, but I can see it.
I think so.
I can definitely see it.
Well, you can also look. I saw the latest news on Prince's death. They stated it was an accidental overdose, but they also stated that someone gave him the wrong pills. Now, if that is the case, then usually that's a criminal negligence,
right,
of some type. But you haven't heard anybody get prosecuted for it. And they're not even investigating it any further. So if that happened, if his death was caused at the hands of someone else, then you should hold, how can you end an investigation? How can you say case closed?
Right.
Because now, Warner Brothers, because he actually died right after he negotiated a new deal with Warner Brothers. And that's when he went around calling himself the artist formerly known as Prince, and had slave tattooed on his cheek.
Mm-hmm.
He, I think he angered a lot of people by doing that. He
Right.
went to war with the music industry, just like Michael went to war with Sony,
Right.
because he wasn't getting paid. I don't think Prince was getting paid for some of those songs that he wrote.
Right. Right. And yeah, I mean, these are some serious snakes you're dealing with. I couldn't be in the music industry. I just couldn't do it. I mean,
Right.
I saw the article recently where artists only make like 12% or something like that off of like the billions of dollars that this industry brings in. Like, that's a problem.
Well, most definitely. And he tried to help out a lot of people with that. And that's why he would go on tour and he would perform new music, because he could make money that way. He didn't perform his old stuff. And he actually covered some of Mike's songs. I think when Mike died, he did "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough." There's a
I've seen that. Yeah. That's the way they really make money these days. You have to tour because music is not what it used to be, selling wise. So they have to tour to make anything, or do other ventures, other businesses. So
right. And getting back with Bill, do you think there's some truth to him buying NBC, that this might be a reason why all of this is coming back from the 90s?
I think it has something to do with it. I think even with how his son was murdered, I think that's all interconnected. It's just, I felt like they felt those, in power felt like he was, feeling himself too much here. Oh, you want to try to buy our network? You know what I'm saying? That I've never gotten a good vibe from that at all. I mean, come on, look at what they did to Michael.
Right.
He bought that catalog, and after that, it was just hell on earth for him.
Right. Very interesting, talking about all of this too. Michael was also in the process of trying to acquire Marvel Comics when the second allegations, and all of the things that he talked about doing, like having a Marvel channel, owning Universal Pictures. He wanted to do that as well. Just think of the amount of money and wealth he would have had, and how he distributed all of his wealth to charities, to poor people. He's actually our biggest supporter of black colleges and universities, more than Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby has every donation Bill Cosby gave, he gave to black people.
Yeah.
He gave $100 million off the bat, $20 million to Spelman. He was generous with people's education, and some 30 or 40 year coochie is tearing all of that down. On lies.
It's sad. It's sad to see. They love this. When I mean those in a dominant society, they like seeing you rise to the top, and they like seeing you at the bottom with nothing, and that's what has happened time and time again. And folks just don't see or don't want to see what's going on. Like, come on. Do you guys not see it's a pattern?
Right. Right. And and Michael too. Michael, when he bought the Beatles catalog, he didn't know Little Richard's music was owned by the Beatles, and he actually gave Little Richard back his catalog for free.
Yep.
He didn't ask for nothing. And he also gave Sly Stone money. Because Sly was homeless? I think he still is homeless, but he probably smoked all of it up. But he gave him $1 million just off the bat.
I heard that he's supposed to be getting like back royalties or something like that a while back.
Yeah, there was a court hearing, I believe, on that a few years back, that he was supposed to be getting back royalties. But he's one of the pioneers of funk music, and it's a shame that somebody like that, he's living in a trailer or living on the streets. That's terrible.
It's awful. Absolutely. Yeah. It just goes to show you that the music industry is not what folks want to believe or it is cracked up to be. Not like that.
Right. Yeah. James Brown's son even talked about how he believed his dad was murdered. His son Daryl went on some talk show, and he talked about it, promoting his book. And he even said, like, when he talked with Ice-T, he said he's fine with, he doesn't have to have a million seller, because there's a price you pay when you want to be in the mainstream. And I think you see that with Michael Jackson. You see it definitely with Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Around the time he tried to buy NBC too, aside from his son being killed, he also tried his mistress, and she's one of the women that is accusing him now of rape. But you remember that girl, Autumn Jackson, was trying to extort Bill Cosby. Her mother is Margot Jackson, who's one of the accusers in this case. So it just, people don't do research. If they did it, they would realize that this whole thing is a money sham. And it's very obvious.
It's a money sham. It's politically driven. It's racist. It's all of it. Just one big storm, you know, one big shit storm, you know, and people don't see it. People are so tunnel vision. They only see what they're told, you know, and when you tell people this, they're like, oh, well, I don't know. That sounds like a bunch of conspiracy talk, but I'm like, no. If I see a pattern, I'm going to go with what I see. And I see a pattern here. With all these big celebrities or famous Black luminaries, something like this, there's always some drastic, crazy fall. That's not by accident.
No, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even look at what happened with Tiger Woods, too.
Right.
You know, he was the victim of a domestic assault, and he was the one that was punished.
Right. For, you know, cheating on his wife. And once again, yeah, that's a moral issue, but is that criminal? Unless he's going around and has STDs or something like that, that's one thing. But if he's just being a horn dog and cheating and laying around, that's a moral issue. And I feel like that's what they did with Bill Cosby. They learned from Michael, from Tiger Woods, instead of having 10 women or 15, let's up it to 60. Let's up it to 100. So it has to be true, you know?
Right.
So.
Right. Well, Nicole, tell us before we leave, like, about the Facebook page that you are part of.
Yes. There is a campaign that we're all pushing, the Bill Cosby is Innocent campaign, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So please follow, share, do whatever you can to get the word out.
Right. And yeah, I want to thank you because you shared my letter, and apparently Fajon Love caught wind of it. And
yes, he retweeted it. He said it's a great idea about writing about this DA and judge, and we need to do it. Definitely. And we got to do the petition too, Gavin. Definitely.
Well, yeah, we'll work on a petition. It's something that you can do on something I'm thinking of doing on change.org.